everybody, and welcome to Everything But the Cats, where we're legally, ethically, morally, financially, and so many other kinds of obligated not to talk about the cats. But we do talk about just about anything else. So if you'll notice, you can see that I am not the only person on the screen, and if you're listening, you don't notice that. Uh, but otherwise, we are joined today by our friend Hayden VanDorien. I introduced you for yourself. What's your name?
Uh, I am actually DJ's brother, living in the flesh.
Okay. I mean, there is a very biblical argument we could make for the truth and reality of that.
I thought you were going to go a different direction there. Some say we have a little resemblance.
Oh, that too. I don't know.
Me and DJ actually played ping pong together last week, and I tried to convince someone we were brothers, and they didn't believe me. And then I went alone this week, and someone else was like, "Hey, where's your brother at?"
Hey, Gage.
Yeah.
I need you to introduce yourself and pause so I can introduce myself for this joke I'm waiting to do.
Okay. I'm Gage.
I'm DJ. That's it. That's the whole thing.
And
So it's that kind of podcast.
yeah, we're everything but the cats. Welcome aboard, those of you who are here. And today we're going to be hanging out with our friend Hayden, just talking about life, some of the cool things he's done and he has done, and just some of the things that we think specifically in regards to economic systems in the Near East. Probably not. Uh,
Maybe.
You got me. I was ready. I can, but I was like, wow, not where I thought this was going.
But Hayden, just to kind of give people a little bit of a taste of just who you are, I got a couple things, and DJ, I'm sure you probably have an icebreaker or something that you've thought of. These are literally things that I am pulling out of thin air here. What is your answer to the trolley problem?
I mean,
I can
it
give you a
sounds
softer ball if you want one.
no. I'm ready. I'm all in. It sounds crass, but I mean, it's a simple mathematics issue, right? 1 to 5. Like you can't put a price on lives, but you can compare them, and as long as we're not getting into like the whole like actually the 5 people are prisoners and the one's like has the cure to cancer or something, but like simple life for life, like one of them's not my relative. Like I switched the trolley. I kill the one to save the 5. Like it's just math at the end of the day to me. I know it's a hard one.
It's very utilitarian.
It is, yes, pragmatic, honestly.
I mean, yeah, but what isn't?
A lot of things are not pragmatic. I mean, you want to talk about economics?
You could argue that like following Jesus isn't necessarily pragmatic.
I mean, yeah, I guess in certain.
Like you
Kill the
put
one to
others
save
before
the live,
yourself.
though.
Which I didn't hear you.
Saying you put others before yourself, like that to a degree is not pragmatic.
No, kinship. That we totally see that in like the animal kingdom, though. Like
That's true.
mothers sacrificing. I don't know. I mean, I get pragmatic for Earth, but like if heaven is real and we believe what the Bible says about it, then I think in a eschatological way, it's definitely very pragmatic.
Man.
These questions were supposed to be funny, and I feel like we just got really serious really fast.
Hey, what's your favorite cryptid?
Crypto?
Cryptid. Like Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, like fake monster.
Man. Maybe the chupacabra from Mexico. I have to go with my Latin roots there. I'm not even sure if I pronounce it. Chupacabra?
You know what's crazy?
There's another episode idea for you. You can compare all the cryptics.
I'm planning on it. Maybe against to DJ's chagrin, I am planning it.
That's
Um,
fine. I'll be here for it.
we did one where I just did a made up cryptid. It's
Mhm.
our raccoon bear episode. Uh, that one was really fun.
It's like Balderdash, where you like give DJ like 3 cryptics, and he has to find
you-
out which one's the fake.
Have you listened to that episode?
Mm. Where you guys did 2 truths and a lie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
How'd you like that one?
Good.
Good.
That was good.
I came up with that one. I was really proud of it.
You came up with 2. That's very original, DJ. No one's ever thought of 2 truths and a lie.
About other things.
That is
Obviously I've played the icebreaker.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to...
that is a lot of people's favorite episode.
Yeah, I mean, you guys' personalities really come out. I could do 2 truths and a lie for my icebreaker.
Well, I've got. So who do you think did 9/11?
Who? What?
Oh my
Jeez.
gosh.
Ugh. That's... I can't go there, man.
Okay.
I
He knows
Look,
more than he's letting on.
I'm a minimalist when it comes to these things and conspiracy theories. I think generally the answer is the one that requires the least amount of hurdles to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
And that would just be the straightforward mass media story that there were actually terrorists that hijacked the planes and took them. Like, is this all gonna get cut out? Because I feel like we just got really off track.
We were never. There's no track.
This is organic.
We're recording, right?
Yeah. Okay. Say there is a track, and we're on one track. He's on the other track.
And I pulled the lever. Full circle, baby. Let's go.
Multi-track drifting.
In DJ's words, when we had Jacob Casey on, what is Hayden VanDorien?
What is Hayden VanDorien? Well, at the basic level, I think the description everyone looks for is that I'm a Spanish teacher currently at Neosho High School, which is just outside Joplin, Missouri, in Southwest Missouri. I've been there just over a year. I've been in education for over 6 years, however. I'm married and have one child who just turned 1 year old 2 or 3 weeks ago. The deeper answer, I'm a very outgoing person, very extroverted. I love sports. Go Real Madrid last weekend. Sorry, Gage. I love playing frisbee and ping pong, and I used to live in China for a couple of years and taught English over there prior to the pandemic. And I can speak Chinese. I did not eat dog, to my knowledge, just to knock those questions out. Yes, they do use chopsticks. No, it's not exactly how you might think a communist country works. But yeah, that heavily influenced my life and worldviews, and so that part of my life is very important to me. I consider myself a language aficionado. I grew up speaking Spanish. My mother's from Guatemala, and obviously English, as you can hear from my voice. I learned Chinese while I was over there, and Duolingo has taught me some Arabic and Korean, and French is probably my 4th best language because of Duolingo. And I learned some Pashto from working with Afghan refugees here in Joplin as well. So I love languages. Wouldn't call myself a polyglot by any means, but would love to be there someday.
Now, now you teach Spanish now, but just mentioning all the different languages that you have experience with to some degree at least, is that like what you want to do long term, is like do linguistic stuff?
Yes and no. I have a strong... My undergrad was intercultural studies, and I would love to continue pursuing that in some fashion or form. I do love languages as well. If I could get paid to learn languages full time, I would. Unfortunately, no one pays you to learn. You have to pay to learn. So the way I get around that is generally through teaching, which provides a lot of opportunities interculturally. I have a master's as of last month in teaching, and so that can get me a lot of doors and places in the world. I'm currently a Spanish teacher. I'm working on getting more TESOL certifications down the road. And that'll just open the door of opportunities to be able to go to these other countries. And I could care, I don't want to say I could care less, but teaching English is a means to an end to be in another culture, be in another place, and learn the language, learn the culture, learn from the local people, and just expose myself to a different point of view.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the end game, is to just be around people who are unlike me and unlike my upbringing, and teaching is the best way to do that that I've found so far.
That's really cool. Now, with language, I know that for me, there are little things in languages that are just kind of funny to me,
Uh-huh.
like just little linguistic things.
Well, back to language tidbits, though. In Spanish, I mean, there's little things I learn all the time. I don't even realize them until I'm like teaching them sometimes. But like, Saturday is sábado, which sounds like Sabbath, which is where they get that word from. Adios means to God. So when you're saying goodbye, you're actually saying, to God, God be with you, which I actually learned is where goodbye comes from. It doesn't, if you look it up, I learned this, it's not actually like have a good leaving, goodbye. It actually comes from God be with you, God be you. And it changed a lot since Old English, but you
Mm-hmm.
learn stuff like that a lot, and it's just fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
Around these parts, we don't say goodbye. We say, real quick before I go, did you hear that Barb's got a new husband?
One more thing, take some casserole with you. Like,
This feels like an inside joke that I don't know.
It's just the Midwestern goodbye.
Oh, the Midwestern goodbye.
see,
Uh,
you get
I've been
further
learning about.
south, and it's goodbye.
I like that one.
I have this with my intercultural stuff. I have all these like similar niche things that I like love reading about. One of them is like European or just anybody's experience when they come to America. I was just reading one yesterday on Threads. Not sure if you're on Threads, but I hopped off X, got on Threads. But there was like it said Europeans, what was like a culture shock to you in America? And one of them was like when Americans ask how are you and they actually don't care how you are. Like there's a standard of an answer that everyone's supposed to say, and if you start like launching into how you act, they don't. That's not what they expected.
In Tanzania, the standard greeting, like the way that you initiate a conversation, is you ask a bunch of questions about someone's life, their family, like, and so the question is essentially how is whatever, but it more directly translates to like, what's the news about your life? What's the news about your family? What's the news, or how's the news about your family?
And you're actually supposed to like answer.
Nope.
No.
It's good.
Oh,
Good.
okay. So
Good.
same
How's your
same
family?
as
Good.
us.
How's work? Good. Like, you don't know this person.
Oh, okay.
How's your afternoon? Good.
Interesting. And in Chinese, the standard colloquial greeting is "你吃饭了吗?" which means "Have you eaten yet?" And I don't really know. I thought at first, like, if I said no, like that was kind of like an invitation to a meal, and that's not the case. They just ask you, and I think you're supposed to lie even if you haven't eaten. You're just, or unless you're like on your way to eat. It's like, yep, I'm good. Like, thanks for asking. But I've said no, and they just kind of like stare. They're like, okay.
So, I mean, yeah, my place or yours? Let's go.
My place.
So, I know some details about what your life has been like since college and some of the cool things that you've done since college. And I was wondering if you like kind of what you wanted to share about like the first couple years after college, or like just throughout. Like I assume you're talking about specifically that period. Could be before then as well, probably.
Actually, I'd like to not share.
Great.
All right, podcast over. We're done.
We can make this Patreon exclusive.
Patreon. You guys have a Patreon?
No.
No.
That'd be hilarious, dude. You never know. Someone could pay enough to, get it going. Or some really rich guy just has like an odd fascination with your podcast. Post college life. So, DJ, you and I graduated in 2018 from the same college. I'm going to use some specific wording that may
Me
sound
too.
odd. Oh wait, were you there? No, you weren't. Same year?
We have a
So I
picture.
actually didn't graduate that year.
Yes, you did.
I walked. I graduated the next year, the next December.
Hayden, we
Oh,
got
well,
a
actually,
picture
I did.
together at graduation.
Oh God! I see. I forgot because you had hair.
I'm
Yeah.
taking pictures with bald guy.
Yeah. No, I took a couple pictures with the prof. Actually, I think the profs had more hair than me.
uh,
Almost
I
certainly.
I tweeted one time, and this is like everybody mentioned in the tweet liked it, which I thought was hilarious. But I was like, a lot of Ozark guys decide that they either want to look like Shane Wood or Michael DeFazio, but my immune system chose Chad Ragsdale.
Oh my gosh! Please
So
do a collab with Every Thought Captive and play that in there.
every cat
They haven't
captive.
done one yet. We all graduated together. I'm so sorry.
No, it's not.
We all graduated that same year. I actually same thing. I actually had 2 more credits and internship that fall. So technically, I didn't get my degree till December, which I have a funny story about that. So yeah, I moved to China in August of that year. I'm going to use some specific language and wording that I think the intended audience will figure out. But we all went to a like-minded college, and I went for those purposes to go teach English in China to kind of share some of our light over there. And this is kind of the way that we talked while we were there, just to not draw attention to ourselves. The group I was with, I won't name them, but um, they're above board and everyone knows what we're doing there and why we were there, but there was kind of a mutual kind of, you know, you do what you say you're going to do and don't cause too much trouble and you continue doing it. Yeah. So my first year I taught at a international school. It was a K through 12 school. And by international, it was for students who wanted to go abroad when they graduate. So have you guys heard about the intense like testing in China or like the major high school test they have to take?
Uh-uh.
So there's something called the Gaokao, which is this test every high school senior has to take. Imagine like the SAT, ACT, and like everything combined at once, like super hard tests. And it basically determines your whole life based on how well you do. It tells you what college you can go to, what majors you're best suited for, and essentially what job you'll have when you graduate. Because for them, it's different. High school is hard, and college is easy. Getting into college is hard, and once you're there, like it's a guarantee you'll graduate. And here it's the opposite, right? Like high school is easy. Everyone graduates high school, and then when you get to college, like a lot of people drop off. So it's kind of flipped in that sense. You do all the hard work up front, and so the school I was at was for students who didn't want to do that. They wanted to pursue um, a regular, or I shouldn't say regular, different college education abroad. That so they basically weren't studying to take the test, so they had just a very different schooling structure that was much more like ours. If you notice, I didn't say normal because after living there, I realized when 1.4 billion people do something, they're actually the ones considered normal,
Mm-hmm.
and we are the ones who are not normal. So that's kind of a one of those like worldviews changing things that was like, no, I'm the one who's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a interesting experience because the group I went with primarily teaches in colleges and universities all around the world, primarily in the 1040 window. We're an English teaching organization.
Okay.
Who, everyone knows that we're like-minded individuals going to these countries to teach,
Mm-hmm.
but we still teach English. That's what we do. We just happen to have a core set of values that unites us and helps us teach English better by living in community with our team members.
Real quick, I do want to say I oftentimes, this is way off topic, but I meant to open with it. Oftentimes, if I'm about to do something new, I'll have a dream about it the night before. So, like, when I was working as a lifeguard, I had a dream the night before I left for camp that, like, I was a bad lifeguard and everybody died. Like that that was the dream I had when I was about to work at the coffee shop. I had a dream that I made someone's drink wrong and they decided to burn the coffee shop down. Like it's just weird stuff like that. So last night I had a dream that we were going to record with the three of us and it wasn't that intense, But what happened is we were supposed to meet at a restaurant and record it live, but I forgot all of the equipment. And we were just chilling out, eating, and talking like we were on a podcast, but none of it was being recorded.
You could just do like the phone recording, you know, people like just
I
carry
didn't
their
even
phone.
bring my phone.
This conversation is brought to you by Audible.
That's funny. I had a dream last night that I was in a villa and then we went to the parking garage and there was a bank in the parking garage and it got robbed. I don't have dreams this vivid very often, so this is funny. And then I was like hiding behind a car and the robbers like came by and I was like, I'll do whatever you like. I don't care. And the guy, he just looked at me. He's like, "Shut up, man. This isn't a movie." Like, and just kept walking past me.
So good.
So I don't know. There's no parking garages nearby that I know about. But I do not have dreams before the day of. But that's fascinating. What kind of restaurant was it?
It was a Mexican restaurant.
That's racist.
Yeah, whenever he dreams about just the two of us, it's like chicken fried steak or something.
Speaking of cuisine, I lived in Sichuan province. Maybe you've heard of Szechuan sauce at Chinese restaurants. They're known for their spicy food and their pandas, and I am personally of the opinion that it has some of the best gastronomy in the world. And Sichuan cuisine is, I've become very like, especially since moving away, like, and coming back to the States, like obsessed with Sichuan cooking and Sichuan food. Like, it is. I can't even begin to describe like the layers to it. Like I mean, I know there's like an ongoing joke that like Caucasians don't season or flavor their food, which I think is overstated, you know. But like they like have spices and texture and like and just like even like the way you like cut a vegetable, like all these things that just go into the process that are just. I took it for granted when I was there because I would eat like it. My favorite meal was there. I ate like a king. Best meal of my life. $4.
Really? Okay.
Oh, dude. It's just everything was so cheap. It's probably be a little more now, but I mean, it was just amazing. The experience, even they have something called hot pot. You guys know what hot pot is?
Yeah.
Heard of it? Yeah, it's. I mean, for those who don't know on the podcast, but like they put like a pot of boiling oil or broth in the middle of your table, and they bring you different vegetables or meat, and you like throw them in there with chopsticks or hold it in there while it cooks, and then you just like put it pretty much put it straight in your mouth. But like even like that concept, that communal type eating, that's a funny story. I feel like I'm rambling, but my first meal there. So going into China, I knew nothing. I knew hello, goodbye, and I thought I knew how to say thank you, which is xie xie, but I thought it was shay shay, and didn't know a thing. I land and I wanted water. And I walk across the street to this little like supermarket type thing, and I realized going in there, I was like, I don't know how I got this far in life and didn't realize this, but I was about to have a conversation for the first time in my life with someone that we didn't speak the same language. Like they didn't speak any English, and I spoke no Chinese. And so I found like their big water jugs. I used to be that guy who like carried around a gallon of water in college, if you remember that. BioLife plasma donation. So I tried to find one, and it was like medium size. I don't know, like a couple liters, but I wanted to see if they had like a bigger one, maybe not a gallon, but just something larger. And so I found an employee, and I was like, oh my god, it's about to happen. I was like, I've never been in this situation before in my life. Like, this is fascinating. And so I just like pointed, and I was like, bigger? Like, and they did this thing. I don't know if you experienced this in Tanzania, but across the board in China, like you try to talk to someone in English, and they always call over a friend who they think has better English than them, and usually doesn't. So he like signals across the store. He's like, "Hey, wait, bonjour, ah, la la la," and they're like going back and forth in Chinese. And finally, the first guy looks back at me and he goes, "This is bigger," which I took to mean that was the biggest that they had available. And I go up to the cashier lady, and I just smile and proudly hand her my Visa credit card, which, you know, they advertise is accepted all over the world. And I saw no reason why it wouldn't work here. And the lady takes my card and proceeds to try to, like, scan it, or I don't know if they were doing swiping still back then or chip readers, but it didn't work. Sorry, anyone with the visa, but 95% of the time it doesn't work in China, unless you're at like a major airport. And I didn't know this, and so she starts talking to me like, just shoshima, and I'm like, I have no idea what she's saying. She started like pointing downstairs and like stomping her foot, and I was like, no idea. So I took my card back and left the water and left the store just so defeated. Like, first day, I can't even buy water. Like, how am I gonna live here? And I got back to the hotel across the street and told my friends or like the sponsors who were helping us get adjusted what happened, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your card doesn't work here, but we have like cash set aside for you guys. Here you go." I was like, "Thanks for telling me in the first place." And I went back and I made sure I waited. It was a longer line, but I made sure to go back to that same lady and I handed her 100 yen, which is their currency. And I had no idea how much it was worth. I just smiled and hoped she gave me back the correct change. And that was my first day there in China.
Okay.
What was the second day like?
Oh, that's right. I didn't even tell you. I meant to start with the meals. That's why I started the story. So second day, because we were talking about hot pot. I'm sorry if I ramble a lot. You can
No.
cut me out. You can do the hand thing to stop me. But we go out to this meal, and they gave us like a Chinese student guide who would like kind of take a couple of us around town and show us around and kind of get us acculturated. Oh God, Gage hasn't raised his hand, so I don't have to stop. And you invited me on this podcast.
No, keep going. Keep
And
going.
he hands us his menu, and thankfully, like a lot of the menus have pictures. Which just next time you go to a restaurant, just look at the menu, see if it has pictures, see how friendly it would be to someone who's a foreigner and doesn't know English. But I was very grateful that it had pictures, and the ones that did, which isn't often, but I noticed like all the meals were like it was like either all of a meat. Let me describe that better. It was like all chicken, or it was like all green beans, or like all like spinach, and I was just very confused. And the guy was like, "Okay, hey, why don't you order a meat and you order a veggie and I'll order a side?" And I was like, "I don't want to eat just like beef." And he's like, he was confused, and he's like, okay, then you order the side or the veggie. And I was like, well, I don't want to eat just spinach, like. And we went back at like 5 minutes, and I'm starting to get frustrated. He's getting angry, language barrier, and then he's finally like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. In China, like, we all ordered together as a group. We put the food in the middle and we split it."
Mm.
And my brain just clicked, like, "Oh!" And then like the second click, like, this is gonna be fun because I grew up in a family that basically already did that,
Mm-hmm.
and I love like trying everything off the menu at restaurants. Like I hate just picking my own dish and sticking to it. I'm very much like I'm not a 7 on the Enneagram, but I'm like that in that sense. Like I want to try a little bit of everything. And so then it was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. But yeah, that's how they eat over there. Similar like that hot pot, that communal style,
Mm-hmm.
like everyone shares like everything. So
There was this one restaurant, DJ. I don't know if this was a weekend that you were gone or not, but when DJ and I worked at a church camp up in Iowa. There was this one weekend where we were allowed to leave for food, one meal, because we just weren't being served that meal, and so we all decided we were going to go to a Chinese restaurant that we really liked that was in the closest town. Uh, or the closest town that had a Chinese restaurant, and we were all just in the mood for it. And they told us we had to stay close because there were campers, but not our campers. It was like a family camp thing, and so we were just like supposed to be on standby in case there was an emergency or something. I'm glad there didn't end up being, because we were told to stay within 20 minutes and we ended up going like an hour away because every town that we got to, there was a Chinese restaurant and it was closed. It was like a Sunday or something and it was just closed. And we were like, we really want Chinese. So we kept looking up and we eventually just were like, hey, this one's 15 minutes away. Let's go there. It's closed. Hey, this one's 15 minutes away. It's closed. Hey, this one's
Right,
15
Kansas
minutes
City.
away. So we ended up like really far away. But it was cool because everybody ordered their food and the tables were these big circles that
uh-huh.
had like a lazy
Lazy
Susan in the
Susan.
middle.
Yeah.
and all the dishes got put on there, and they were huge, and you just
Yeah.
spun it around and took off the plates what you wanted. And that was like one of my favorite eating experiences I've ever had.
It's so fun, and like you can see how the pandemic spread really fast when they eat like that. But um, like they're trying to do like government promotional things now where they talk about like a group like a serving chopstick.
Mm.
So like there's one dedicated set of chopsticks that's just for putting the food on your plate so that you don't put your own chopsticks in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean I can see how that can be gross to some people, but it didn't mind me. I didn't mind it. It didn't mind, the food didn't mind. um but yeah, there's just something about like even the way they eat, that communal nature that I really miss. Like every meal was they had places you could go and eat alone, but I just miss that, man. It was so good. I found it fascinating that it felt like everything they did in China was like the way they eat, talk, walk. Sometimes I felt like even they breathed differently, and yet at the end of the day, they were still like people, just like you and me, families and lives and stories. And that's what gets me so frustrated about the rhetoric we hear about China. And I think it's become more nuanced. Thankfully, some people are like, "Well, I don't mean, you know, the Chinese people. I'm talking about the Communist Party." Maybe you've heard that before, right? They're like, "Oh, I don't hate China. It's just the party." And I mean, that's a slightly more nuanced view. I think that's progress,
Mm-hmm.
until you remember that the Communist Party is made up of 110 million members. So we're still talking about like a huge portion of the population. But yeah, it, it- it's just hard when people like say things that are just like broad, sweeping statements about so many people, people that I know and love, and um, have these lives and stories that aren't too different from us.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
I've never been in a spot where I've had a humongous cultural difference. Both of you have, because both of you have been in other countries, multiple other countries, right?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know where else you've been, but Mexico, right?
And Honduras, yeah.
Honduras.
So I've never
Honduras.
left the United
Yeah.
States.
Oh, really?
No, I haven't. Like the biggest culture shock I had was going from Fort Scott, Kansas to Chicago.
And I bet that was for you. That was big, right?
It was pretty big. I was in South Side, but like there were no language barriers, and everybody was very like because of the specific position I was in. Everybody was very willing and ready to get me comfortable and to help me understand things better. Um, and they wanted it to be less of a shock than it might have been otherwise, basically.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
great.
but there was no language barrier, and there were no like major cultural barriers. Like there were some cultural barriers, but for the most part, like not as many as you might think.
Sure. Yeah, and even I mean, I remember my first time going to like New York, and like it is different. Even I wasn't as experienced then, but I mean, America is just so large,
Mhm.
and going back to like Europeans talking about America, but like I've read funny stories where they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll just like go to New York for the weekend, and then we'll probably like drive down to Florida for a couple days, and we want to hit up Vegas on our way out." And they just have no preconception of how large America is because they're used to like country hopping and thinking,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, it's a little bit from Rome to Paris, but not that much, right? And we're just like, you are not driving from New York to Florida for a quick trip. Like,
Well, so in the original movie for The Fiddler on the Roof, there was a scene at the end where they were talking about moving to America. Two of the characters, and one of them said they were going to be moving to New Jersey, and the other said they were moving to New York. And he was like, "Oh, we'll be neighbors. We can see each other easily." And it's like even that, like it's
yeah,
close, but it's still a bigger difference than they assumed it was.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you've been to New York, even like the Bronx and Queens is like, you might as well book your weekend around seeing your friend there.
yeah, I say yeah. I've never been in New York.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nah, but
Not
Uh,
there's
yet.
it's
not
yeah,
yet. There was something you mentioned though when you were talking about how people, the slightly more nuanced view of people saying
yeah,
that they don't hate Chinese, like the Chinese people. It's the party. I just started reading Slaughterhouse-Five a couple days ago, by Kurt Vonnegut, and it's
What's that
about
about?
it's a so he was a veteran of World War II, and he's one of the great American authors. It's regarded as one of the best anti-war books written by an American. Um, and one of the things that he said in the beginning of the book is that his books don't have villains because people are just people. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. He's like, people just, they see things differently. And he was talking about how he was driving around Russia uh, during like um, during the Soviet era, and he was like, just the people that he interacted with talking about communism, and he's like, here's how Americans see it, but here's how they see it, and talk, just like we're all just people.
Yeah,
He's like, that's why when I write stories, I don't put villains in them.
it's fascinating. I yeah, I've heard stories where people like went to Russia, post Berlin Wall and fall of the Soviet, and they were like, "Wait, you guys also practice drills where you hid under your desks? You guys were also told that an imminent
Mm.
nuclear strike could come from America at any moment?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just like laughed and were like, "We basically lived like the same life," and I think that's so true. Like
Mm.
that people to people exchange has just gone down a lot since the pandemic, which is unfortunate because we used to be the number one country for hosting Chinese international students, like 300,000 plus a year. And they're taking their lives from America back with them to China, and we're interacting with them. And that was what was cool about that Netflix documentary about American Factory. It was just that people to people, like you
Mm-hmm.
meet them, you humanize them, and you realize they're not the enemy. They're people just like me.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a lot out there that, like, the world is bigger than we think it is, and social media and the way that things are interconnected makes us feel like it's smaller than it is, but there's just so much out there that's just ignorance. Like, it's just people not having that social connection, like the person to person connection.
Yeah. Yeah, and I view myself as a bridge across cultures. When people talk about China or Afghanistan, like I'm happy to step in, and vice versa. Like I don't do it often anymore, but I will defend America to Chinese friends when they're like, I heard they do this in America, and I'm like, no, like you have it totally wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. But a funny story about that, I'll have lots of funny stories I can always throw in, but my first after my first year in China, I was doing my rounds around the country. I did like this crazy 15-day, 15 city road trip across America. Super fun, visiting lots of fans that were helping me in various ways. And the number one question I got was, "Did you eat dog while you were there?" And the funny thing about stereotypes is that they come from somewhere, and um, dog used to be a considered delicacy in China. They're much more international now. They've cut down on that for the most part. If you really want to eat dog, there are places you can find it there. That being said, it is a delicacy. You're not going to accidentally find dog meat in your food. Like they don't just, that's what gets me about these accusations is like they're not going to put an expensive dish in there and sneak it in there
Mm.
um, like that. But I got that question all the time, and I was just like, no, like they don't. I didn't. It's true at some level in various areas. You can find it in like the rural areas. Well, after like 10 days of this, like getting the same question over and over again, I get to this new city and this family, and we're at dinner, and this little like maybe 10-year-old girl, I'm staying with their family that night because I just stayed with friends everywhere I went. And they're asking me all these questions about China, and she looks at me and she goes, "Do you like dog?" And I was just like, I'm tired of this. And so I looked at her and I was like, you know what? I love dog. I love him grilled. I love him baked. I love him barbecued. I love him boiled, charbroiled. I don't even know what half those things on my oven do, but I love it all those ways. And her eyes get as big as dinner plates. And she looks at me and she goes, I was asking because please don't eat our dog tonight. And I was like the one person who actually like wasn't asking about that, and I just went off and got angry. And
I would eat dog.
I would
I would
try
try.
it.
yeah,
I'd
Like,
eat my dog.
would you eat human though?
we've done an
Sure.
episode where we answered this question.
Oh, you did? What'd you guys say? Do I have to listen to it?
No,
I do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
curiosity
yeah,
would
you
get the
talked
best
about
of me.
The
the
Uruguayan.
Uruguayan
Yeah.
plane crash. That's so funny. I was laughing that whole episode too because I had just watched it.
Like the documentary on
Yeah,
Netflix or
yeah.
whatever.
Gage was like, I won't watch it. I was like, it's such a freaking good movie. You have to. Did you finally watch it?
Well, I did I say I wasn't gonna watch it?
Yeah, or one of you said I probably won't watch it.
I don't have Netflix, so
I think my sister and I started watching it. I didn't realize that it was like we were wanting to put something on in the background. I didn't realize that it was subtitled, that it was in like Spanish.
I think they have dub if you want.
I didn't know that. We started watching it. I just wanted it in the background while I was doing other things, and I was like, no, I need to wait until I can sit down and actually pay attention to this, because I don't have anything. I don't have anything against watching things in other languages. I just want to be able to give them the proper attention that they
I
deserve.
mean, if you're having to read, then you can't, put it on in the background.
Exactly.
Well, actually, that's a fun story how I met my wife. But okay, well, while we were living in China with this group, they had an annual conference every year in Thailand, and there's kind of this running joke that a lot of people would like meet their mates there, but it made sense, right? Like a lot of people met their significant others at Ozark because you're in a community of people around the same age as you who have a similar goal and value and purpose. Well, imagine that on steroids, because now it's like everyone's like your same major, pretty much. Everyone wanted to go live abroad.
Mm.
And so, like, it was really like everyone met their significant other there because it was like, this is perfect. They've already done all the vetting for me that it would take years if I met a random girl at church to like get to a point where I know that she stands where I stand on these morals and values and has the same level of conviction and yoking. And the fact that like she's there already teaching overseas for the same purpose
Mm-hmm.
did 90% of the work for me. And so yeah, I like to tell people I met my wife in Thailand and they give me a weird look like, is she Thai? It's like, no, she's American, but she was in a different part of China. At this we met at this conference and our first conversation was basically, hi, nice to meet you, I'm homeless. Because I should have backed up. This is February of 2020. I could easily tell our 2-hour love saga, but suffice to say, we met and fell in love in Thailand. I will share in the same language as I was earlier, but the father did some amazing things over there in Eastern Asia. I think one of my first stories I like to tell people was my first Christmas. Um, uh, it was a really hard Christmas. You're away from home and they don't celebrate there, and so it was just really painful being away for the holidays, and it was really discouraging. And it was like this darkish 2-week period for me. And this guy texts me like the day after Christmas. He's like, "Hey, you want to hang out?" I was like, "Sure." And we get dinner and we head back to my place, and just totally unprompted. He's like, "Wow, you can really see the mountains from your house. Like we live on the edge of the Tibetan Plateau, which feeds into the Himalayas. Like beautiful, gorgeous mountains. Like puts Colorado to shame. Like all these mountains are easily 14ers." And he's like, "Wow, you can really see the mountains from your house." I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "How do you think the mountains got there?" And that's kind of what we did is we tried to ask these like thought provoking, deeper level questions. And
Mm-hmm.
just out of nowhere, he just looks at me. He goes, "I've never thought about that before," which is like very common in Eastern Asia. They don't think about these like cause or origin questions. And he looks at me. He goes, "You're a believer, right?" It's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Don't you have a book that tells you about where these mountains came from?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Can you tell me what your book says about where these mountains came from and how they came to be here?" Just like this very like, I mean, if Griff had shared that story in personal evangelism, I would have been like, "That's never gonna happen." Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's clearly out of a textbook. And here it was, like this opportunity just thrown in my lap, and I had a really fun time sharing with him. What's cool is like where I lived was one of the birthplaces of Taoism. You guys know much about Taoism?
Nope.
A little bit. I had to read about it a couple years ago. A lot.
So you may have also heard it referred to as Taoism. That's a different iteration of the word, but it comes from this word Tao,
Mm-hmm.
which means the way. Um, And the whole purpose of Taoism is that you're finding this mysterious way, this purpose that is intentionally unknowable. You're actually not supposed to find the end of it. And when the first like-minded people went to Eastern Asia and they were trying to translate some of our word into it, and they got to John 1, and they have, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Father, and the Word was the Father. Well, Word didn't translate as well. I feel like this defeats your whole podcast. Word didn't translate as well, and what they ended up finding was like culturally it was most relevant to talk about the way. And so the air version in John 1 says, in the beginning was the Tao, and the Tao was with him, and he was the Tao. And I think that's like a really cool, like, acculturation, like thinking about like how Paul went to Athens and he went to Mars Hill. RIP to those guys. And different podcast shout out. And he says, I see you're very religious. You even have an idol to an unknown God. And here it was, he's like, here I have found this unknown God. And I thought that was really cool to be like, here is this Tao that you've been searching for your whole life. Here it is, and his name is. And that was just a really cool cultural thing. They have other things like the word for boat is 8 people, 8 mouths. That kind of like resembles like Noah. Maybe they think might be an allusion to that, the flood story, flood narrative. My favorite is, and people, I guess I could draw it, but I won't. But the word for lamb, the character for lamb, and the character for I, like myself. If you put them on top of each other, that's the word for righteousness in Chinese. Lamb over me. And in that same John 1, I've been able to like share with friends, like, you know, the John the Baptist looks and he points at Jesus and he goes, hey, look, here's the Lamb of God who's come to take away our sins from the world. And I show my Chinese friends this character. I'm like, you know this character, right? I think it's a decently common character. They're like, yeah, it means righteousness. Like, to take away your faults or sins. And I'm like, the Lamb of God. And even if you know more about like ancient Israel and Judaism, like that means even more. And there's really cool things like that. One of the friends I shared this with, we have this linear scale that we use to kind of measure how receptive people are to hearing the good news. All the way from like -3 to like they're hostile, like they will fight you, which you don't really see a lot of in America, and I didn't see a lot there in China, but mostly it was like 0 was like the stone cold. It was just, for the most part, they just don't care. They want nothing to do with it. They just want to live their lives and make money and be happy. To like 3 is curious and 6 is seeking, all the way to like 13 would be like a believer, and 20 is like a mature believer who is producing fruit. And anyways, this girl was like stone cold all year. I would ask deeper questions, like that mountain question, like, you know, what do you think happens when we die and stuff, and just unresponsive. She would just ignore me or like pretend like I didn't even ask the question, which is just very normal in that culture. Like if they don't want to talk about something, they'll just ignore you. And all year was like befriended her. She was one of my closest 5 friends there that I really worked with, like sharing the light with, and she just didn't budge. Well, that summer in America, she got a job in Wisconsin, like a summer exchange thing where she gets to like work at this hotel and like hang out in America for a few months and practice her English. And coincidentally, on my big road trip, I also got to go through Wisconsin that summer. And leading up to this trip, I noticed on Chinese social media, she posted this video, and she's at this house, and there's like food and friends and people playing games and hanging out. And I click on the video, and I hear the audio, and it was something like, you know, what a beautiful name it is. Obviously, sounded much better than that. And I was like, what? And so I messaged her. She goes, oh yeah, it's this like thing I go to. It's called food, family, friendship, and faith. And I was like, and what? And she's like, oh yeah, we get together each week and we read the book. And I'm like, what? This is so unlike you. I got to hear more. And so I finally made it there on my trip, and she tells me all about it in this group, and she's like very seeking now. She wants to know a lot more about what we believe and why we believe it. She's asking all these questions. She's going to regular study groups, and my heart was just so full. Like, what a cool moment! And the coolest part of the story, probably, I want to preface it with this. One time in Joplin, there was a lunar eclipse, but the lunar eclipse was at the same time as sunrise. Like it was like 6:51 a.m., something like that. And I woke up early. I was like, I want to see the eclipse, but sunrise is also at 6:51 a.m. And so I go outside. I try to find the moon before the sun rises. And there was this weird moment where I found the moon and I can see it in the Earth's shadow all the way over here. And 180 degrees exactly, by definition, because it's a lunar eclipse, was the sun rising over here. And I felt this like weird, like transcendent a cosmic moment where I'm exactly between the moon and the sun. And I state that story because she shows me around this town that she's in, and she's introducing me to all these people. She takes me to this coffee shop where it's kind of an outreach for these other international people working there, and she introduces me to all these workers, and she introduces me to this one guy who's like, oh yeah, he's the reason I'm even in this study group. And he's like, oh yeah, we love her, she's great, she's been coming for a while. And she like goes to the bathroom, and I just felt this overwhelming urge from our holy guide, and I went up to this guy and sat down with him, and I was like, I know you don't know who I am, but I'm from China. And he looks at me and he's like, no you're not. I'm like, okay, I live there. And I was like, me and my team have been trying to work to share this light with this girl for years, because people had been working with her before I even got there.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the answer to our prayers. And it was this transcendent, like this eclipse moment, where I'm like standing between, I'm on the other side of the world from China, where I've been. And here I am talking to this guy who's been working for the same purposes, for the same good father, who's been working on this girl for the last few months in that summer. And the fact that we normally never get to see this side of things. The father doesn't normally let us see the full picture come together like that eclipse moment where it all comes together. And yet the fact that he allowed me to see that in that moment was so surreal. I felt like I was in between the moon and the sun again. Like he had just opened the floodgates of heaven and was like, look at the big picture. Look what I can accomplish. I'm just giving you a little taste of how much I do.
Mm-hmm.
Very serene, very surreal. And it reminds me of Randy Garris. I asked him for advice before I left him. He said, don't ever think you're going somewhere God hasn't been. And my last weekend in China, unfortunately because of COVID got cut short, but I visited the student's hometown. We're talking rural countryside. Like, they've never seen a white guy before. I'm pretty sure the chiropractor got a lot of business that week because heads were turning everywhere we went. Like, people were just, what? A white guy? Everyone was stopping and taking pictures with us. Like, it was just, you feel like a mini celebrity. Mini story in there. We went out and further in the countryside, and these little 8 and 9-year-old boys were coming up to me and my friend and asking us all sorts of questions. They think all white people look the same. They think we all know each other. And they're just asking us all, do they really eat hamburgers every meal? It's like, well, yeah, of course we do, And all these other, are you guys brothers? No, we're not. Just because, we have beards doesn't mean we're brothers. And finally they go, do you know Spider-Man and Iron Man? Because they just think we all know each other. And, we do the same thing too sometimes, But my friend, he's a little more honest and sincere. He's like, sorry, buddy. And I just put my hand over and I stop him and I go, we are Iron Man and Spider-Man. Kids just start running around the village. They're like, it's Iron Man, Spider-Man. It's Iron Man and Spider-Man. Just losing their minds. But that was the level of, like, these people have just not interacted much with the outside world. Mm-hmm. And they had this, like, first panda base, like the first panda rescue mission, they call it. Which is really where they just take pandas and make sure they don't kill themselves in the wild because they're very clumsy. And we're on the way there, and my friend's like trying to tell us more about it in English, and he's like looking stuff up, and he's like, "Oh, it says the guy who started it, he was a missionary," and trying to pronounce it. And me and my friend looked at each other like, "He didn't just say that word, right? Like we're not supposed to say that word." Mm-hmm. The nature of our work, and but sure enough, this French guy in the 1800s had come to China as a missionary and had discovered great pandas and started this research base and saved the first one and rescued it into captivity. And he was the reason that like the Chinese people can thank him for like his groundbreaking research into pandas in the 1800s.
Huh.
I'm talking like 1854, like 170 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we're like touring this museum, this base. Again, very far on the countryside. Like these people have never seen a white person before. I'm kind of getting a big head. Like, dude, like I'm the ish. Like people have never been here before. Okay, this French guy was here a while ago. And we round the corner. We're in the middle of these Sichuanese mountains. And I remember just floored because there before me was this beautiful Catholic church. And most of our friends here are probably Protestant, but the Catholics, they built some beautiful churches. It was not Notre Dame by any means, but it was just in the mountains, this wooden chapel with a full like Virgin Mary and Jesus statue and everything in the middle of nowhere. And I could just feel the Father speak to me right there and then. And Randy Garris's words came coming back to me. Don't think you're going anywhere that I haven't already been. I've been here for a long time before you came here. Look at those Chinese characters. Look at this church in the mountains from 150 years ago. I've been here a long time before you, and I'll be here a long time after you. And even now, 5 years removed, very sad that I haven't been able to go back and continue the work there. I think that's like an awesome, powerful reminder that he's always there before us, and he's always there after us. And even as I struggle with like obscurity or being remembered in the world, like he'll be there long after us, and his mission is much more important than ours.
Any final words, Hayden? Do you want people to find you anywhere?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. I'm the only one in the world at Hayden VanDorien. You can find me on Instagram at denhay16. I think that is my Instagram handle as well. Happy to answer any more questions about the work. We're hoping to visit China this Christmas and kind of get some closure and healing from our sudden departure in 2020. That's a whole nother episode. I slept in 65 different beds in 2020, just couch hopping all around the U.S., homeless, thinking I could go back at any moment, and was unable to because of circumstances beyond my control. So we're hoping for some healing, closure, and redemption this winter break. We're going to go over Christmas, hopefully to China. So there's a GoFundMe link. You can hopefully find it on Facebook and help us out if you want.
Okay. We'll share that in the show notes for sure.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay. DJ, do you have any final words?
One time when I was in 4th grade
At band camp.
I was at a skating rink and I ripped my pants just like all the way up the crotch. And I kind of crawled back to the safe space, like where there are tables and stuff, so that you don't have to like be in the middle of the rink with your underwear hanging out. And told my teacher what had happened. Her name's Miss Graham. Great teacher. Really, really great lady. I was kind of bashful about it, and she's like, don't worry, I've got grandkids, like, I can help you." And I was like, that's not how this works. So, I've been DJ.
This really has been everything but cats.
I've been Gage. I want to say a few thank yous and a couple final words. Thank you so much for sticking around this long. If you are watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever, Podbean, please leave a like, rating, subscribe, follow, whatever the different things allow you to do. Also, thank you just for being here and for being the person that you are. We love and appreciate you. Thank you again to Adam Ward for our intro music and Jared Scrother for our outro music. If you would like to follow either of them and see what they're up to, we leave their information in the show notes and links to their Instagram pages as well, which is the best place to get most of their info. We will be leaving some of Hayden's information there as well. As we move forward, if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments or send us an email at nocatspod@gmail.com. Get it right?
Nerd.
Yeah. But again, thank you just for sticking along for this journey. It's been really fun, and I'm glad that we get to have you along with it. So please just stay beautiful, inside and out, because you are.
Well, thank yourselves.